Well, Luke, it's great to have you back and have this conversation on this, unfortunately, very heavy topic on mental wellness and mental health. But before we do that, I know you and I talked last summer and had a really good conversation. But I've got some additional follow-up questions that I think people are going to really be interested to hear. This would be maybe not as intense conversation we had last time because it's going to be really about you,
Sure.
about your journey. But I want to start talking about your dad because I wasn't aware that your dad was such a powerful influence in the NFL. And now that I'm kind of into card collecting, I want to get some rookie cards of your dad's.
Absolutely.
But tell me a little bit about your dad, and then I think take that story about your dad and how that influenced you as a young man coming up, even before you played sports. Like, what did you learn from your dad, and how did he become such an important part of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first off, he, grew up in a really small town in Ohio, on the border of, Ohio and Indiana called St. Henry. And, I feel like, just going back and seeing how he was raised and everything, with my grandparents and, all of his siblings, it makes sense the way he turned out, the way he did. And there's not a lot of people, in that town. And so, for him to come out of there and have the amount of success that he did, going to Ohio State and playing there. And he was there for 4 years. And then, fortunately he was drafted in the first round out of the Chargers and, spent the bulk of his career in Washington. But, he had a lot of success, but it was all about the hard work that he put in. Obviously he was athletically gifted. He'd always growing up, he'd always tell us like, he's 6'6", 290. You can't coach that.
That sounds like my dad. He always said that too.
That's his slogan, and so he's obviously really big, but he's super athletic and, obviously worked very hard too. And that's something that I kind of took away from him at a young age was just, obviously I wasn't alive when he was playing and when he finished up, but I heard the stories and, got to see some, old VHS tape, that he was on. Yeah. So, I got to see a lot through that, but, it's just the hard work. And that's something I've always tried to carry with me today is just, I'm going in there, don't expect anything to be given to you. Everything that you go and do, you got to earn. So, it's all about hard work.
So to continue that, I think it's interesting to talk about legacy assets and like legacy athletes because, we do a lot of work with the Murray family and obviously Chris and Keegan, people don't realize, but Kenyon was a pretty good player in his own day.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
He was a McDonald's All-American.
That's awesome.
Set tons of records back in Battle Creek, Michigan. And I remember the boys growing up that, there was times when I think they felt like they had to play like their dad. Mm-hmm. Was there that pressure on you growing up where you felt, geez, my dad was this athlete. And once you realized, how good he was, did you feel that, or did that give you a sense of you wanted to get your own identity and not really tie it to his?
I felt it a little bit at times, but at the same time, it was all about finding my own identity. But at the same time, I always tried to emulate him and try to live up to those expectations. The nice thing about it was that I played a different position in football.
What did he play?
He played left tackle in the NFL.
6'6", 290, you said?
Yeah.
That's not tight end.
No, that's not tight end level, So he played left tackle in the NFL and was a guard in college. So I was never really on the offensive line growing up. I was, a quarterback, running back, receiver, throughout like, my young years and then into high school. I didn't have to live up to that expectation, but, in basketball, I always kind of felt like it because he played, but he always told me I was better than he was. So, that gave me a sense of confidence. And, he always used up his fouls. I think he still has the record for the most fouls at his high school. So,
a lineman playing football,
exactly,
that makes sense.
Exactly. So I tried not to do that, but, I found different ways I could emulate him.
Your time at Iowa had lots of ups and downs, like, every athlete has.
Yeah.
It's not all, unicorns and butterflies, right?
Yeah.
During the hardest moments, so, you had, coaching changes, you had some, there was an issue, not you personally, but on the team with some gambling issues. There's lots of things. And that, that's every team and every business in the world has these internal issues. How do you personally, Luke, deal with these things? And how do you look at adversity let's talk with like a team culture first. Like,
Yeah.
are there things that can happen in a team that are very, cancerous, that can cause a demise of a team that should be probably on paper good talent wise, but the culture isn't good? Where do you find lessons in these stories of adversity? And, like I said, you went through a lot of ups and downs at your time at Iowa. What was the biggest takeaways from the adversity that you went through?
Yeah, first off, I feel like you gotta, kind of try to, weed out that negativity, that comes with it internally and stuff. There have been times where, people are negative in the locker room, and it's just not something that you can deal with on a team.
And the ones, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. You kind of stay away from them, I would assume. Yeah.
Yeah. Try to stay away from them, but also try to, let them know, like, we need you. We need every single person on this team. So it's like, you gotta be able to try to adapt and change the culture that we have. And, at Iowa, we don't have the best recruits, coming out of high school. We're really
stars are overrated.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. They're overrated. Right. We've turned a lot of walk-ons.
Iowa proves that all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. We've had a lot of walk-ons and low level recruits go and have really successful careers. And I think that's just a testament to Coach Ferentz. But a big part of that is the culture that they've set, and you really got to buy into that. And the people that do tend to go on and have successful careers.
As a leader on a team, obviously, and I made a statement about trying to avoid people, then it dawned on me that a real leader is trying to inspire and empower. So what are some things you can say to an athlete that maybe is taking more than they're contributing? Like, as a leader, what can you say to a freshman or sophomore, let's say you're a senior, to get that kid to see things maybe a little differently? Yeah,
at a young age, it's hard sometimes to understand, what's going on and how big of a problem that they may be causing. Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's just like so much that they can do at a young age that will really help them out later on in their career. That some people just don't always understand. So, you can always just kind of show them that, try to tell them that, but it's more so, the actions that you do, and you can lead by example so much. I really believe leading by example is such a big thing, and with people, they more people watch more than they listen. So it's like you go out and you hear these things, but then when you see people actually doing it, that's the stuff that really makes a big impact. So I always tried to make sure that I was leading by example and could pull some people with me.
I love that. My mentors in my life, Luke, coming into the investment industry early. I did play a couple sports in college, but golf and
heck yeah, that's awesome.
And small time basketball. But
love it.
So I remember emulating certain mentors, and I remember literally copying their behaviors and stuff. And I think when you say lead by example, especially in sports, it's such a big thing. Who were the leaders when you were a freshman at Iowa, when you got there and you were wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, and you're this kid coming in from Ohio? And who are the guys on the team that stepped up, either coaches you can think of or maybe some key players? And then maybe why? Why do you think these individuals were good leaders?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. For me, it was there were so many leaders, but there was like three that I can really think of that I really, tried to watch and emulate. And the first one is Sam Laporta. Him and I were exactly. Yeah. Him and I were in the same room, obviously, and we grew really close. So, a lot of the things that I like to do was, watch him on the field, and, I'd sat right next to him in meetings. So we'd talk, and, if there was something that he could help me out with, we'd watch, watch the film on it and try to make those corrections.
So he was a senior when you?
No, he was just a year older than me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, that's what I thought. He hasn't been in the NFL very long.
No. So, he was just someone I looked up to a lot. And so, that's just someone that I felt was always a leader in my eyes. And, I just tried to watch him. And then, Jack Campbell, again, he's he's another guy that's just a year older, but
good one.
You're
picking two good ones there.
Yeah. He's a quiet guy. I think, but he leads by example and through his actions. He'd doing conditioning stuff. He'd run
nobody better than him by leading by example.
Yes. Yeah. So, he practices so hard. He practices the right way, and, goes about his business the right way. And just like he goes out and runs with the skill guys when we do our conditioning stuff. And then the last guy is Tyler Linderbaum. He was a couple years older, and he's just another guy that works really hard and is really dominant. So those are people that I really watched, and obviously they were all great vocal leaders, but it was more so their actions that really kind of drew me to them.
Sidebar here, but I went to high school with his dad.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Todd.
Nice.
So,
yeah, that's
he was
awesome.
a year younger than me at Solon.
Okay, that's awesome.
So small world.
Yep.
So your season in 2023 was cut short due to injuries. Mm-hmm. So maybe talk a little bit about the specific injury, what you can, and how you've healed back from that. And then also when you're on the sidelines and you're injured, we see this all the time, even March Madness and stuff and Super Bowl, you always see the athletes there that are the stars that can't play, and your heart goes out for them because they've worked so hard to get there. And now they're there.
Yeah.
What can you do on the sidelines when you're injured? And where do you see the benefit of being able to look at things differently when you're injured? You're not out there, so you can observe better.
Yeah.
Is there some advantage in that? When you come back into the field, you can say, "Hey, I've observed from the outside. I can see that we should be doing this better." Are there lessons in injuries? Yeah. I mean, there has to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what were your personal learning lessons in injuries?
Yeah. So, first off, I had a right ankle dislocation, and a crack in my fibula and tibia. But it all feels good now. It's real healthy, and but a lot of lessons that I can learn from that too. I mean, it's you really get to sit back and just kind of watch how everything goes, and it's really hard.
Yeah.
But the first thing I learned a lot about myself was just patience.
Yes.
And just good things really come with time, and it's obviously not the situation I wanted to be in, but it's a situation, I believe that God put me in to go out, and it's just kind of what it is. And so I just tried to be the best I could. I may have talked about this last year when we met, but read a book by John Gordon called The Energy Bus, and just not trying to be an energy vampire in the facility. So being in there and every meeting and trying to just help out the guys in any way that I could. I felt like I did a good job with that, and just tried to continue to be the leader that I could without being out on the field, because obviously there are different roles that you can take on. Yeah. So I just really feel like I tried to do my best in doing that.
There's a saying that you're only as good as the lowest person on the totem pole.
Yeah.
So if you have an organization and you go down to, even the people who, are very valuable people, they clean, they take care of the janitorial services, is you're only as good as a company, as good as the lowest person. I don't mean that as a quality of person, but their job description. So you take a football team, you've got the people that wrap the ankles, and, my dad was the team doctor for the basketball team.
Yeah,
so John
awesome.
Streif and Dr. Albright,
Yeah.
And I saw how the players treated my dad. They were unbelievably good to my dad. And my dad, was, I don't want to say just a doctor, but it's important, but he's not out there playing.
Right.
But he has a lot to do with those that are out there playing.
Yes.
So, when you're on the sidelines, in a way, you're kind of the low man in the totem pole now, because you can't contribute on the field. So does that in itself give you a sense of pride that, hey, I'm just as important as the quarterback or the guy that's out there playing my spot, instead of moping around on the sidelines, hoping that guy drops a ball. So when you come back, that's a toxic mindset, right?
Right, definitely.
But I'm sure you've run across athletes that unfortunately have that mindset, but I hope that a good team, most of the young men are cheering for success, even if you're injured.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to.
Exactly. You have to. I mean, the mental turmoil that you're putting yourself in, not cheering for your team is really hard. I'd say myself, but every person on the team, from the doctor to our janitor to the people that bring in our meals, to everybody on the team is super important.
Yeah.
And, we wouldn't be able to go out and play without any of those people. And, to not be out on the field and have to try to find that other role, it was certainly hard, but, I did find, pride in that, being out, but still being able to help out and do whatever I could, to help out.
I know a lot of athletes feel like fans can be a burden, and I know it can be tough. I mean, you'd want to sign every autograph that you can, but I've seen you at events, and I've seen you take the time to acknowledge the fans and what they've done. So how much is that important to you as an athlete going on to the next level? I mean, you're going to have, some crazy fans in the NFL.
For sure.
How important is it to you that when you're walking off the field and there's a little kid there that looks up and, that was you one day, man.
Yeah.
That was you looking at somebody.
Exactly.
How important is it to you that you just maybe give that kid a thumbs up, or just, you don't necessarily have to go over and sign something, but just let that kid know that, hey, I appreciate you.
Yeah, no, that's super important to me. Obviously, I was definitely one of those kids growing up, going to Ohio State games. I remember at halftime, I'd make my mom leave so we could go down we'd leave a couple minutes early just so we could go give high fives to the guys coming up to their locker room. So, it's obviously super important to me. And, I try to, make sure I can, give an autograph to that little kid or, give a high five or something like that, the people that are standing there. We've got a lot of great fans at Iowa. And, obviously I know there are a lot of great fans out there. So, I'm just looking forward to any opportunity I can to, spread kindness and joy.
It's very easy for us to have unhealthy conversations with what I call the inner voice, right? I think we talked about this last time. It's the narratives we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
It's not just athletes, it's business people, it's teachers, doctors, or whatever. How do you have your conversations with because we all have an inner critic.
Yeah.
You're human like me.
Yes.
It's easy for us to doubt our abilities. And how impactful is it that you have healthy conversations with yourself? So anybody listening right now that's a young athlete that's maybe not playing or maybe should be playing because that's what they think they should be playing. How do you stay in positive self-talk, and what guidance or tips would you give for younger athletes to try to flip that switch when they start to tell themselves a negative story, catch yourself and say, hey, I need to tell myself something more positive?
Yeah, no, it's huge. Yep. I mean, that's almost the whole thing is just positive self-talk and, being, if you're on the sideline on a timeout, and I remember one thing specifically, I knew it was third down and 4, on the 14 or 16 yard line in 2022. And there was a play that we were going to run that I was probably going to get the ball on it. And so I'm just on the sideline kind of talking to myself, like, you got this, like, just go catch this, make the first down. But I was really telling myself that I was going to score, and sure enough, I got it and I scored. So it was cool, So it was awesome. Like, the positive talk to myself was a big thing for me. But, also like just trying to not to let any negative, things come to my mind because, I feel like I spread a lot of positive energy to guys. And, I had a mental coach out when I was in California training, and we were just kind of talking, and I took this like Gallup strengths test kind of thing, not that exact, but just off the data that he got. And we talked for like 20 to 25 minutes before, and then he really dissected me, and he told me that I need to be a better teammate to myself. So
I love that.
That's a big thing for me now that I think of a lot. It's just like I spread a lot of positive, energy to other people, and I could just be better, to talk more positive to myself.
So a follow-up question to that is, I'm thinking in my head right now, watching, and I don't know when this is going to post, but obviously it's going to be over, but watching March Madness, and you've got someone like Cooper Flagg who had this opportunity to his Christian Laettner moment, but he missed the shot.
Right.
And today they had a video of him out there in the golf range hitting golf balls by himself, So let's say you get in that game, Luke.
Yeah.
And the ball hits you right in the hand and you drop it.
Yeah.
So what's the self-talk then right there?
Yeah, I mean, that's really hard.
Because that doesn't have, you don't always catch the ball.
No.
Right?
No.
Like Cooper Flagg had to tell himself some story pretty quickly. I got to move on from this instead of just starting to go downhill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot to have to go through.
Let's say that ball hits your hands and you drop it.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. You got to go for the next one. I mean, obviously it's a big moment, in the Final Four to miss a shot for him, but it's,
He'll be back.
He'll be back. Definitely. And you just it's like Mark Andrews. He dropped a pass on a 2-point conversion. In the playoffs.
Yes.
And it's just
or a kicker.
Exactly, a kicker missing a kick. Yeah. You just got to tell yourself the next one. It's hard. You probably let a lot of people down, but
you signed up for it. That's
exactly.
the thing. You knew as an athlete that you want those positions.
Yeah.
Like, there's nobody on the field that wants to catch the ball at the last second than you.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
But you also know with that comes, and anybody watching this, it's, take a risk in business, you take a risk in a relationship. There's always a chance of it not working out.
Right.
And then what's your mindset when that happens? And then think the old Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, or as Marcus Aurelius said, it's not what happens to you, it's what happens for you.
Yeah.
It's like even a dropped pass can be an opportunity for you to become a better tight end.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, definitely. And you just learn so much, not only about yourself, but about the people around you. And, I think that's, there's probably a lot of people going over to Cooper Flag and, putting their arms around him.
I feel terrible for his parents.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And, it's a tough moment, but I'm sure that he'll, be stronger because of it.
It reminds me of a time when my son was getting recruited, and I was walking for golf. I was walking out at a course in St. Louis area, and I was with Kansas's coach, golf coach, which is one of the best golf programs out there. And funny thing, he wasn't there recruiting my son; he was there recruiting somebody else. But my son got a chance to play in front of him.
Yeah.
And I was asking him, I said, as a parent, what do you look for in a competitive Division I golfer? And he said, surprisingly, every kid thinks I'm here to watch you make those bombing drives and those 50-foot putts and all that stuff. He goes, no, I want to see you snap hook a shot out of bounds, and then what do you do next?
Yeah.
And that always stuck with me.
That's great.
It's like, a lot of these kids get all nervous when they're around these coaches out recruiting and stuff. And I think a lot of coaches, though, they want to see you fail, but they want to see what you do next.
Right.
Every kid can hit a 300-yard drive in that level.
Yeah.
Everybody at your level can catch a football,
Yeah.
But what do you do when you drop one that you should have caught?
Exactly.
You hang your head, you go to the bench and throw your helmet down,
Right.
You cause a penalty the next play because you weren't focused.
Right.
I think coaches are really looking at, and I think for the Gen Z generation, everything's results oriented, but I think a lot of people want to see what you do after something happens not in your favor. That shows your resiliency. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely would agree with that. And just your perseverance to move on.
So last time we talked a little bit about your family, because you come from a very strong, loving family. Not everyone comes from families like that. I was fortunate too, Luke, and we called the Leave It to Beaver family I grew up in.
Yeah.
But how important is support systems in sports? So let's take, you have your family.
Yep.
Again, a lot of athletes don't have the loving, supporting families like you and I had.
Yeah.
But how important is a support system on the field? So you have your coaching staff and your teammates, because you love them like family, because they are your family for a long period of time.
Yeah.
But then off the court, the girlfriends, the relationships, the teachers, people like that. How important is that support system if you can separate those two?
Yeah, no, they're super important. First off, starting with, coaches and teammates, like that's, the people that you really are playing for. Obviously you play for your family and everything like that as well. But you go out there and, especially at an away game, there's 70 players and however many coaches and, support staff that are there. And that's who you're playing for. It's all of you guys against everybody else, and that was our big thing. So obviously that's super important. You want to make the play for the guy next to you more than I want to make it for myself. And that's what I kind of, really
that's
say.
That's a great attitude right there.
And, that's the first thing. But, obviously then, for my girlfriend and, the people outside, like teachers and everything, like that's super important too. My girlfriend is super important to me and someone that, I really rely on a lot. So, to play for her, but then also to have those relationships outside of it. It's just a super important thing. And the teachers too. I mean, I've had a lot of great teachers at Iowa, but, obviously the ones in high school are, some people that I'm, close to now still. And, they're all super supportive, and I try to show that as well.
A lot of athletes struggle with identity, and these would be for maybe athletes that don't have a chance to play after college or high school. Do you have any suggestions for younger athletes that they want to be the next Luke, they want to be the next Keegan, but they don't have it for whatever reason? Is it difficult to make that shift? Do you see former football players that have a hard time getting back into, the non-football life? And then what advice would you give for athletes? Because the statistics aren't in your favor. I mean, It's hard. I don't know what it is, but I know in the NBA, it's
it's very selective.
Yeah, and I can't imagine it's much different for NFL. But what advice do you give for an athlete? Maybe they decide their sophomore year that they don't want to play baseball anymore.
Yeah.
But their whole life, they were kind of pushed to being an athlete. Now it's like, they don't want to do it anymore. What advice or guidance would you give for anybody out there to help maybe get a new identity or to find a way to not be so identified with the football Luke?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that I'm sure there are more interests outside of, that one sport. Find something else that you can, pour a lot of energy into. And, whether that's, riding a bike or, going on a walk, or, something like reading a book, there's so many things that you can go and do. And I think that, finding a new thing that you can go out and have fun doing is a really important thing. There's obviously a lot of stories like that where people just get burnt out of, doing one thing. And, like playing, for me, it was like, I didn't want to play basketball year round because I didn't ever want to get, burnt out of it. I liked the idea of, having growing up, I loved basketball.
You were a multi-sport athlete.
Multi-sport, but my parents always told me like, you got to play all these sports, and I wanted to, and so I played football and basketball, and ran track and field, and sophomore, junior year, that's when I really decided I wanted to put all my my eggs into the football basket. But I didn't ever want to get away from playing the other sports that I did because it was so much fun, and it
gives you a break from the real job.
Yes, exactly. And I've just heard so many stories of, people playing baseball year round, basketball year round. And it's just, just that burnout is really hard. So, for that, I'd just say play 3 sports. But, when you get burnt out and, that's your only sport that you want to do, it's, you got to go and find a new interest and a new hobby that really interests you. And, there's a lot out there for sure.
So what's the impact of expectations? So coming out of high school, you had a set of expectations. Now going into the NFL, it's like there's another set of expectations there. Are you finding a different set of expectations going from, say, high school to Division I football at a high level? Because obviously the level gets higher. I'm assuming the expectations get higher along with it.
For sure. I mean, it's hard. I mean, I haven't really even thought about like all of that at this moment. It's just going out and trying to be the best, prospect I can be at this point, and just trying to get into shape, and football shape. Cause I know
there's only so much you can control at this point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's gotta be a little frustrating.
Yeah, definitely. Once I kind of figure out a little bit more, what team, I'm going to be going to play for, and, it'll be nice to kind of, figure that stuff out, when it gets there. And then maybe some expectations can come, but, from, Division I to college football, it's just, my high school there's not a lot of, we have 350 kids. There aren't a lot of, Power 5 athletes. I was the first, I believe. And, it's just, there's a lot of expectations that come with that. I just tried to really just focus on myself and just try to do what I could do, all the little things that Iowa teaches you to do. Just do all of those right, and just let the rest take care of itself. I thought I handled that well, so I should probably take that same mindset into the NFL. Iowa's definitely taught me a lot.
Will.
Yeah.
We talk about the process a lot, right? Because when you were a young boy, a young man, you had this dream of making it to the NFL. Well, you're at the you're right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you taking time to enjoy the process? There's a lot of talk about being present in people's lives, and so there's things I look back at my life at 59 and times where I didn't enjoy I got successful, but there was something about the journey that wasn't enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
Now with this app we have and kind of in the startup world, I'm a lot more time I'm taking to be present of the journey. Is Luke doing that? And can you do a better job yourself in being more present in your life as these things unfold that right now you don't have a lot to say over?
Yeah. I feel like I could do more. There's a lot that I'm really thinking about, as far as, we got a lot of interviews and, I got to do all these workouts, and then, here we go, the draft's in 3 weeks, and then I'll be sent off, going and doing all the working out and stuff, and obviously practicing. But, there are times where I'm really sitting there and I'm like, this is all I've ever wanted. This is what I've dreamed of my whole life. And to finally be in this position, I really got to, be happy and just not take it for granted.
You're not lucky. You've worked your tail off.
Yeah.
But there's something about that moment that you have to savor because it's going to go fast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. a lot of people say it's just, like they talk about college and how fast it goes.
Yeah.
When, you hear it as a freshman and you're like, oh, okay, we'll see how fast this goes. And now, and now I'm here and I'm the one telling these freshmen that it goes by fast, and it really does. So, you just really got to enjoy the moment. And, I definitely could be better about that.
Yeah. What's your go-to thing? I have like two things that are my go-to when I get to, whether it's just doubt or I'm critical or I'm having a very difficult time with what I went through. I have like two things that are my go-to. What's Luke's go-to one or two things to get you kind of recalibrated?
Just I love to call my girlfriend. Yeah. That's a big thing. When we're not together. Now we're pretty much going to be together now. We've done long distance, so. Just like talking to her and, just kind of, telling her how I'm feeling, and just the feelings is really big for me. And, like this is what, I wanted when I was a 18-year-old, to be in this same position that I'm in right now. And it's a lot of it is just talking about those feelings. 'Cause I feel like another time, I really reflected on that was when I was being, talking to the media at Iowa. You just kind of, I feel like I like talking about it, not keeping the thoughts within. Is a big thing. So I'd say that's really the main thing, is just kind of talking about the feelings and talking about, how I'm feeling about things.
What's the best part about football for you? Like what's the thing that you just like, man, when this ends, it does for every athlete. Yeah. What are you going to miss the most?
The relationships that you build, with my teammates and, the coaches, all that stuff. That's really hard to find in a lot of other places and, companies and stuff like that in other fields, I feel at least. And, there's just so many people, trying to achieve the same goals as I am. And, there's a lot of just like-minded people that we come and you just build so many great relationships. So I just feel like that's the biggest thing. And then, I think I was thinking today during our lift, I was like, one day I feel like I'm really just going to miss, my body feeling sore, just like when I'm not working out and training for the NFL and, for football and stuff. So I'd say that, that's something too. So
you don't see 20-year careers in the NFL.
Not very much. No.
So what about the grind that you like? I think as an athlete, we like to push each other. And I know when I played, I always liked it, but then there was something addictive about the grind. What about that do you find the most appealing as an athlete?
Yeah, I feel like it's the results that come from the grind. Like obviously, it's hard to wake up at 5 a.m. Every single day during the season and get up for the lift or the meetings and then for practice after that. It's hard to do all that stuff, but when you go out and you play a game and you win, it's super rewarding. And all the work that you put in that week is so worth it. And, obviously our bodies are going through a lot too. So just like making sure you're staying on top of that, but it's hard to go in there and do all that treatment, and then come back and put your body through it again, but you win, and it's just like, it's awesome. So, I mean, the grind, it's hard at times, but you got to love every single second of it because you're working, constantly towards getting that next win, and everything like that. And
it's almost like you got to convince yourself that you're honored to be in this position.
Yeah, for
how
sure.
many people would love to have your physical talents and have your mindset and stuff that they just don't. They just don't. Not everybody can be the same. And so, but they can in being a better teacher, a better doctor, a better podcast host. I mean, we always can become better.
Yeah.
So I guess as I wrap this up, what would be like the one mental wellness or mental health, I hate that term, but let's say mental wellness advice you could give to anyone aspiring to be the best in their field? What's like the one thing that you've learned in your life that you could suggest that people do to help their mental health? Yeah,
I mean, just spreading positivity, and like I said before, being a better teammate to yourself, I think is really big.
That's great.
Being positive, having those thoughts is really important, and just that positive self-talk is something that can go a long way. So whether you're, trying to become the best podcaster or, the best radio host, whatever it is, go out there and be the best you can, but, also give yourself some grace. There's a lot that goes into it, and you need to stay positive and just, be your best self.
Yeah, I mean, at my age, at 59, I wish and I hate saying this term because I don't like going back in time too much, but I wish I wasn't beating myself up all the time. Mm-hmm. I mean, just constantly never satisfied with anything. And again, that made me very competitive. Like, I wanted to be successful in business, but I never defined what successful was. For me, it was always about money. And then, when my son and my wife died, I realized pretty quickly that's a very shallow way to live your life. If that's the only thing you're doing is for money. So it took me a long time to learn that lesson. Yeah. And life will teach you lessons. For sure. Sometimes it's through death. Sometimes it's through addiction. Sometimes it's through an injury. There's meaning and purpose behind these things. So I got a couple just open-ended questions for you here. So what book are you reading right now?
Yeah, I'm reading The Power of Positive Leadership by John Gordon. Okay. I'm currently reading that. And then the next one is The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. Yeah. So that's
She's just on the Rich Roll podcast.
Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. So that's the next one on deck. So, hopefully that'll just, help myself out, not trying to listen to the outside noise. Obviously there's a lot of outside noise that comes with, being an athlete and, playing for a big program like Iowa and then going into the NFL. So it's just, trying to let them, I just read the back of it. So I
don't think I need to read the book because the whole title is Let Them Be. I mean, you can't control what other people think or do or say. And you can't control how successful someone else is or how much more money they have or looks or whatever. It's like, it's hard enough to control me.
Yeah, for sure.
How the hell am I going to control you? It's like, but we spend a lot of our time outside worrying about what other people think. Right. And what's your favorite sports movie?
I like Remember the Titans. That's a good one.
Yeah. Mine's Caddyshack.
Oh, that's good. Is that a sports movie? Yeah, I'd say it is.
Favorite sport to play outside of football, and I'm going to take basketball off the table. So you can't play basketball now.
Yeah, track and field then. Yeah.
Okay.
I loved that in high school.
What did you do in track and field?
Yeah, I ran the 400, 4x2, 4x4, and then did high jump.
Okay.
So, 400 and high jump were probably my two
best. Is golf in the top 5?
I'm not very good at golf. Yeah, top 10. Okay. Yeah, golf. Yeah,
I bet when you hit it, it goes a freaking mile. It just doesn't go straight.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it does if I hit it right. But I'm not great at golf. But I probably wouldn't ever also see myself in a track and field setting either. There's a higher probability I'm going to go play golf, than getting out and doing track.
Golf, when when done with football, you'll have lots of chances to play some great courses.
Exactly.
Who would be your top 2 dream teams to end up playing for?
Oh, that's so hard.
And I know Pittsburgh Steelers first because that's my favorite team.
There you go.
I'd love to see you be a Steeler, man. That would make my whole draft.
That would be awesome.
Who's your 2 favorite teams?
Growing up, obviously it was the Washington, Commanders, and so I mean that would be cool. Not really sure. I obviously don't have a preference.
I know you don't.
It's so hard.
It's a tough question.
Yeah, it's a very tough question. And then
I just don't know if you had a childhood favorite team.
Yeah, that would have been them.
Washington.
Washington. Yeah. So it was just because my dad played for them. Yeah. So they had a really great year last year. So I'd say that was
they're an exciting team.
Yeah, for ssure.
Okay, so after football, after sports, and all this, what do you see yourself doing for a career, I guess?
Yeah, it's so hard to think about. I want that to be,
entrepreneur maybe, or
an entrepreneur,
teacher,
something like that. Yeah, so probably something like an entrepreneur. That's what I went to school for, enterprise leadership, and so something within business. Obviously I've met a lot of great mentors. With Jordan Montgomery being one of them. He's done a lot of great things. Through his keynote speaking, and obviously I just like to. It would be cool to be in that realm somehow. So who knows? There's a lot of.
I can give you some guidance on startups too. But
there we go. Yeah, that'd be great.
What not to do.
Yeah.